Former President Donald Trump has nearly erased President Biden's cash advantage after the RNC says so far they raised $141 million in the month of May. The Biden-Harris campaign raised $85 million last month.
David Spunt is live at the White House. David?
All about the money. Good morning to you three. President Biden not even here at the White House this week. He's been hunkered down with aides at Camp David, the presidential retreat in Maryland, in the Maryland mountains, to prepare for that CNN presidential debate with former President Donald Trump Thursday night. The president spent the weekend with aides. We expect him to go directly from Camp David to the debate on Thursday. On Friday, the president will hold a rally in North Carolina. Meanwhile, the White House facing some questions about the promotion of a new press aide, someone named Tyler Cherry, who's handling the president's climate agenda. According to our colleagues at Fox Digital, Cherry once tweeted that police are, quote, the direct evolution of slave patrols and lynch mobs. He wrote on X, apologizing, past social media posts from when I was younger do not reflect my current views, period. I support this administration's agenda and will continue my communications work focused on our climate and environmental policies. A White House spokesman said of Cherry, quote, we're very proud to have Tyler on the team, end quote. Today also marks 2 years since the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, and the administration plans to tout that heavily, putting blame on former President Donald Trump, hoping even 2 years later that crucial decision will resonate with voters as people prepare to vote in the coming months. But new fundraising numbers, as you mentioned, Steve, show that war chest the Democrats tout may not be big enough to fend off the fundraising numbers from Team Trump, and this is post-conviction. There are new reports out that Team Trump has more cash on hand as of recent weeks than Team Biden. And speaking of Team Trump, the former president expected to host Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters, at the RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in a few weeks. So the Teamsters has yet to make an official endorsement as he met with President Biden in the past. Back to you.
So, David, going back to the person who had the embarrassing tweets that they've apologized for, you would think that if you were getting a job at the White House, you would go into your tweet machine and get rid of all those, wouldn't you?
You would think.
One would think so, but apparently there are some that were still up there. He apologized, and the White House is defending him.
Okay. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
You know, that's a big get, the Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters chief, Sean O'Brien. And it's, you know, in the past, Trump has done really well among, you know, union members. And so the fact that he's actually getting into the leadership of unions, and obviously we don't know whether he's going to endorse or how that's going to work, but that's a pretty big, that's going to be really interesting.
It's a big get.
Yeah.
It's interesting he raised that much money, Trump, in the month of May. That was during the trial, and I was watching an interview with Andrew Cuomo and Bill Maher, and Andrew Cuomo said the hush money trial against Trump should not have been brought to trial. He said the only reason is because A, he's running for president, and B, his name is Trump. And Bill Maher said that that trial didn't affect the poll numbers. Instead, it only helped him fundraise and do better.
And just remember, a year ago, before Alvin Bragg announced the charges against Donald Trump on the hush money porn star trial, Donald Trump was trailing Ron DeSantis. Next thing you know, Trump was talking about how he was unjustly accused. Trump started surging in the polls. I mean, it looked like it was DeSantis's to lose, a year ago March, but Trump has very effectively gone past that, and obviously that is also one of the things that helped him raise that boatload of dough in the month of May.
And of course, he's also raising money from small dollar donors. Mm-hmm. You had Joe Biden respond by going out to L.A., trying to raise a bunch of money from Hollywood, and those people write big checks. That's great, right. Everything, not knocking.
You don't need so many.
But right, exactly. You don't need as many, but the other thing is they're immediately tapped out.
Right.
These small dollar donors who gave $12 and $15 to Donald Trump because they were angry because they think that the Justice Department is going after him over politics, they get to write more checks, and they probably will write more checks as the campaign goes on.
Well, Politico, a Biden ally, tells Politico the whole point of it was to come out with a sizable cash advantage. And, we're now even, and it's June. I have no other word for it other than depression among Biden's supporters.
So, the debate is going to be Thursday night. According to the Washington Post this morning, the goal of the Biden advisors is to get a Joe Biden who, on Thursday night at 9 o'clock, appears vigorous. To present a vigorous guy in command of the issues, able to take on Donald Trump. And ultimately, what they would like to find a way to do is to get under Donald Trump's skin so that he lashes out at Joe Biden, and it would be a repeat of the last time they got together. The Biden team would love that. In the meantime, according to the Post, the Washington Post, Trump's advisors are coaching him to focus on the issues that he does the best on immigration, on crime, and the economy. And just keep reminding people, hey, Joe, you know, there are a lot of people. I met a bunch of people in Philadelphia at the cheesesteak place on Saturday. A lot of people are hurting. They don't have as much money as they did when I was president. And why would anybody give you 4 more years?
You know, during that rally in Philadelphia, he polled the audience whether he should be mean and tough to Joe Biden or more calmer. Yeah. And the audience cheered calmer. I thought that was really interesting.
I heard one person did say, be tough. We want you to be tough, though. So,
But the applause was overwhelming for calm. I was like, okay.
He's got to be prepared for those gotcha questions.
This is discipline.
Like you've said you didn't really win the election. He can come back with, well, Democrats have said that too. Remember when Hillary Clinton said that she didn't think that he had really won? And so did Stacey Abrams in Georgia.
Well, let's see what he says, because undoubtedly that's going to be one of the things. And also, apparently, the Trump team is preparing to not only battle Joe Biden, but also the moderators in case, the deck is stacked against
Eric
Mr.
Trump said that. He said this is a debate between 3 people. It's a debate between CNN and Joe Biden.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.